Hello, everyone joining our webinar today. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to give everybody a minute or two longer to get into the Zoom, and we'll kick off just in a few. In the meantime, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, where you're from, why you're here, maybe. All right, one more minute. I'll just give everybody a little grace period here. If you're new to the webinar, please introduce yourself. Say who you are, where you're from. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think this is a little bit like the microwave popcorn reaching peak. It's great to have everybody here today. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. We're here today to celebrate the incredible cohort of our 2025 Wellbeing by Design Fellowship. Today's audience, all of you in the room, reflects the breadth and the depth of this movement, from global NGOs and major tech platforms to public media, startups, researchers, educators, community leaders, all committed to advancing children's well-being through thoughtful, inclusive design. We're thrilled to spotlight a group of designers who are reimagining what digital experiences for kids can be, applying frameworks like RITEC, or Responsible Innovation in Technology for Children, to center young people's needs across dimensions like safety, creativity, relationships, and emotional well-being. The fellowship embodies what our organization, the Joan Gans Cooney Center, stands for: turning research into practice, supporting creators with tools and guidance, and ensuring that kids' voices are at the heart of the design process. We're deeply grateful to Pinterest, Boundary 10, and Google.org for making this work possible. Thank you so much. And now, I'm delighted to hand things over to our head of partnerships, Allison Levy, who will set the scene for today's celebration. Allison?
Hey everyone, thank you so much, Michael. I'm Allison. It is so great to see so many friends here, and we're thrilled that you're joining us for our celebration of our second cohort of fellows. We had around 100 applicants apply to this professional development program for designers and producers of interactive kids technology and media, and I'm so excited to introduce you to this year's Gems of Humans that inspire us and we know will inspire you too. As a former teacher, I'm a big believer in show, not tell, and my amazing colleagues, Catherine and Hannah, have done an incredible job putting together this video, capturing a bit of the magic of getting this particular group of fellows together. Leslie, if you can hit play.
When I think about designing for children's well-being, what comes to mind is a more holistic approach that focuses on how children feel and the context that they're in before, during, and after any playful or storytelling experience that they create.
When I'm thinking about well-being in my project, I'm hoping to revise our project to enhance it to think about the well-being of children in every step of the design process of this project.
My goal of the fellowship is to walk away with some of that Sesame Street magic.
To learn from peers, from people that are doing exciting things in the children's media and technology space.
And additionally, just access to the resources and the expertise at Sesame.
I'm really excited to learn from everyone. I think everyone has such wonderful ideas and such unique backgrounds. So I'm looking forward to all of the collaboration and exciting conversations that we'll have.
I'm really just inspired by these fellows. They're all building such incredible projects, and I'm hoping that some of their wisdom rubs off on me.
And also for me, just to grow and learn more about this for my own well-being, I guess, and growth as a person, as a professional, and as someone who makes things for kids.
Great. Leslie, if you can go to the next slide. So as an organization who is deeply committed to centering children's voices, we wanted to give you a glimpse of our youth design team, a core part of this experience. And Leslie, if you could go to the next slide, we also wanted to highlight some of their reflections. We want to give a special shout out to our partners in Tandem who brought the youth design team together and helped ensure all of our interactions with the youth went smoothly. We're so grateful to all they brought to this experience. There will be a QR code to access this deck at the end that we'll share in case you didn't get to read all of these incredible quotes. So no stress. And just a quick note on our Q&A, all our fellows are online and we'll be leaving time at the end for Q&A, but feel free to put your questions in the chat and tag any specific fellows you want to direct the questions to, and we'll do our best to facilitate the Q&A to get all of your questions answered. So kicking us off is Ruben, who happens to be traveling in Japan right now, and so he pre-recorded his presentation.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Ruben Sudak, and I'm an interactive producer with Fred Rogers Productions. I'm sorry I couldn't be there today. I hope you all are enjoying hearing about these amazing projects. All right, so for the fellowship, I focused on this big question here. How can we infuse well-being design into the production of all games at Fred Rogers Productions? To answer this, I used a few test cases from our current slate of games in production. 2 of those games are for our show Don Quixote for ages 3 to 5, and one of those games is for Alma's Way for ages 4 to 6. This fellowship led to a few key changes in the interactive work that we do. First off, I discovered a newfound interest in helping children awaken their digital preferences, which will become a big focus of one of my test case games. The fellowship has also led to a newfound interest in incorporating co-design into the early process of our games. It's also helped me with providing a few additional guidelines for those early stages of the project, where I can bring in frameworks like RITEC or the Playful by Design toolkit into the process to evaluate concepts and early designs. Also, this fellowship has led to me having just more conversations in general with other producers about well-being in our work, which is fantastic. Some of my highlights from the fellowship were the co-design session with the youth design team and the incredibly informative chats that we had with them throughout the fellowship. Being introduced to the identity pillar of the RITEC framework and thinking more deeply about designing for self-actualization. This was fantastic, super helpful, and also led to me feeling more interested in helping children awaken their digital preferences, like I mentioned before. And finally, the willingness of this cohort and the fellowship speakers and the facilitators to have the hard and scary but very necessary conversations about the future of media and technology for kids. We are living in unprecedented times, and it was really fantastic to be able to talk to everyone in this fellowship about those really hard to talk about things. And finally, some takeaways I'm left with at the end of this fellowship. First, well-being design should be intersectional. There are so many analytical lenses that we brought to all of our different projects on well-being design throughout this fellowship. Things like age, race, class, ability, mental health, sustainability and degrowth, gender and sexuality, geographic location and cultural background. The list goes on. All of it's important to bring as a different analytical lens to the work that we do so that we can holistically address well-being in children. The second one is that sometimes I think reducing harm means making and doing less, not more. It became very clear to me through the meetings with the youth design sessions and just talking to all the different folks that do different work across the industry through this fellowship that young people have to deal with so many different things vying for their attention these days. So I think it's fair to say that not everything needs to be made just because we can see an opportune application for it in our product. I think good well-being by design recognizes that sometimes we need to remove things and embrace lower tech for the sake of our audience's well-being. And finally, every time we were talking with the youth designers about how addictive an app can be for a child, or how hard it is to navigate generative AI in schools, or any of the other struggles of participating in our digital world, as a child, I couldn't help but feel like I needed them as an adult, and I can't be the only adult that feels this way. So I think that maybe we all need well-being design and not just children. And I think fellowships like this are a good place to start when it comes to helping us all care better for one another digitally and think about this more critically. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who organized this fellowship, and thank you so much for coming to hear us all talk about our projects. Bye, everyone.
Hi, and thank you, Ruben, for kicking us off with a video. Um, my name is Noelle Posada Sheng, and I'm the design director at Killer Snails. My journey with RITEC, the framework, began last fall when a coworker suggested I apply to the fellowship. I then began the process of researching the framework and reading through both research reports. Reading about well-being meant what well-being meant to thousands of children, and then about how to innovate and design for children's well-being drove me to immediately apply. In this fellowship, I work to improve Killer Snail's first virtual and digital hybrid experience, BioDive. In BioDive, students act as marine biologists studying venomous marine snails. They learn about the biotic and abiotic factors that affect their ecosystem and later help to identify issues within the environment. The initial experience was released in 2020. Since then, my team and I have gone on to make 2 more hybrid digital and XR experiences and have learned so much from the students and youth that we design for and play test with. We wanted to re-examine this past project with students' well-being in mind. We wanted to better support students' identities, autonomy, and sense of accomplishment. To do this, we needed to retool the story. From years of feedback and play testing, we knew that certain elements of the narrative arc of BioDive were occasionally lost or glossed over. We wanted the story to be more grounded in the importance of venomous marine snails to our planet and to emphasize the important work of our chief scientist, Dr. Mandy Holford. To accomplish this, we went back page by page, cataloging the story as it existed and doing extensive rewrites to help with understanding and brevity. We also realized that the order of activities within the journal was not aligned to the new narrative arc. We moved around many of the activities and centered the importance of venomous marine snails better throughout the story. We also wanted to have students better identify with real scientists. What better way to accomplish this than to have Dr. Holford talk directly to students in 2 videos, one where she gives students their mission and another to congratulate them on their success and hard work. We play tested our narrative changes with children and the youth design team and quickly discovered there was more to do. In a couple of instances, we saw students struggle to respond to some of our more complex questions. In some cases, these questions were compound, using both multiple choice responses and written responses. Before our changes, the multiple choice responses weren't corrected. Students could select the wrong response and then continue down the wrong path in a written portion. We corrected this so that they would receive meaningful feedback in the multiple choice portion of the question. We realized in playtesting that many times students were struggling to find information from previous activities that would help them answer questions later on in the experience. We made a quick travel option between the 2 sections to streamline this interaction. We also got feedback from both our playtesters and the youth design team that the WebVR that we initially designed for a different system was difficult to navigate and use unfamiliar controls, requiring both a mouse press to move forward and arrow keys to turn. Our developer quickly came to the rescue and updated the controls to function in a way more familiar to kids who play first-person perspective experiences. So much of being a designer or any professional is about being an expert. Knowing exactly how to address any problem that comes your way, using your gut to suss out the issue at hand, but I'm not an expert at being a kid. It's been quite a while since I was the age of my work's primary audience. So much of the framework and the way it was made centers around children being the experts. They know what they like, they know what makes them feel accomplished and safe, and what best addresses their well-being. I've learned to not just trust my gut, but to listen and to have my designs respond to their needs with this fellowship. Our revised version of BioDive is now available on killersnails.com. I'd love to invite you all to go check it out. And I'm going to pass the baton on to Jen Cho of Questcraft.
Did you know there's a type of game that boosts creativity, social emotional skills, and, according to growing research, even academic performance in subjects as difficult, and some might say boring, as linear algebra? This game style is called tabletop role-playing games, or TTRPGs, and our project, Questcraft, wants to make TTRPGs a part of every young person's life. Questcraft is a culturally responsive role-playing game designed for kids, with gameplay that fits in classrooms, homes, and community spaces. It's super fun. That photo in the bottom right is from one of our playtesting sessions after a dramatic plot twist. And it's inherently social because you play in a group as you solve problems, roll dice, and battle monsters. While game resources are provided digitally, the core of the intervention lies in the real-time conversations between players as they embark on a quest and develop a story together. Any fellow Dungeons and Dragons players out there knows the power of TTRPGs for adults. We bring this to kids. And one of the things that's awesome about TTRPGs is it's a blank canvas. It doesn't have to be about traditional Western dragons and wizards. These two young women in the middle of the slide wrote our first adventure set in Bengali mythology. Kids who share their background are excited to finally see themselves in a game, and kids who aren't from this background get to experience new cultural immersion. I co-created Questcraft with my son at a hackathon just over a year ago, and this year, through the Wellbeing by Design Fellowship, we've moved from instinct to intention by adopting RITEC as our North Star for children's well-being. Much of RITEC was aligned to the core of what role-playing is, like empowerment and social connection. And there are other areas that we're leaning more into now, like exploring emotions and identities. We want to thank our advisors from the CUNY Center, my fellow fellows, and the youth design team. Just to highlight a few learnings. Youth autonomy is critical, especially when adults are facilitating the game. It can be tempting for grown-ups to intervene when kids make what adults might think are suboptimal choices, like players punting on a quest objective just to go buy milk. It happens. Youth pointed out that different players need different things. For example, they noted kids who are feeling shy might prefer co-playing a character with a buddy, while kids who are feeling silly might love inventing characters with unconventional powers. Like in one playtesting session, an 11-year-old named his character Gen Beta iPad Kid. His full strength was unleashed with a +2 rage bonus whenever his iPad dies. We all know that feeling. Now we're prototyping multi-sensory immersive elements like mood-setting videos, movement-based play, and incorporating sounds like a song that I'm going to post into the chat. You can check out later. We are developing relationships with researchers. It's a tough funding environment right now, to say the least, but we're laying the groundwork and beginning to use RITEC aligned metrics for ongoing impact evaluation. We want to bring this magical experience to more schools, homes, and community spaces. We're seeking partners, collaborators, and funders to help us expand our Sesame Workshop-inspired youth co-design and to build out our tech platform. We invite you to join us on our quest. You can find us at questcraftkids.com. And now it's time to pass the torch to the next hero in our adventuring party. Please welcome Kirsten.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten, and I'm a senior user experience researcher at Amazon Kids. Here, I focus on driving research initiatives for our devices and services for children between the ages of about 3 to 12 years old and their families. So my project is slightly different. I focused on bridging the gap between child-centered approaches to user experience evaluation metrics. And it sounds like a mouthful, but ultimately the problem space consists of the current user experience design heuristics, which are essentially rules and guidelines, don't always address the unique needs of children. And these guidelines are really well established in the user experience and human factors industry. However, we wondered at Amazon Kids, if these usability violations exist for adults, do they apply to children's products as well? And should we really be following them to a T? So while there are some child-centered guides that exist, oftentimes they focus on more niche markets, such as education, gaming, or they're not as comprehensive as the well-established heuristics that we use for general audience products, or for parents who also use our products. So using the general audience frameworks combined with the responsible innovation for children's technology and child and youth-centered participatory design, we feel that there is this ideal foundation now for developing a new framework for those of us who work in this unique space of child-centered designing. So ultimately, by doing this, we will help lead to better products that serve the unique needs of kids from social, emotional, physical, and cognitive standpoints, as well as their overall well-being. So the impact of this work and some of the innovations that have come from it now are for UX practitioners like myself, as well as designers and students, we're working on bridging the gap between more of these traditional metrics and child development needs. So it will help us provide a concrete tool for evaluating our digital experiences from a child's perspective with child voices as a part of that process. So we'll be able to really enable these informed design decisions that happen behind the scenes for all of the different products that we make and that are made out in the industry. We'll also be developing best practices for integrating a framework like this. So this is really the first step and a proven moment that there is a need for us to refresh this in the industry. So for companies and for leadership teams, another impact that we have here is by incorporating these principles into early design foundations, such as design sprints and formal review processes that happen very often when we're evaluating things like usability, comprehension of a feature. We can proactively address issues and prevent future challenges for children when they're using our products. So this approach not only helps mitigate risk, but it also opens up new opportunities for innovation in the kids' tech world. Additionally, we introduce these specific nuances in classrooms and higher education. So the key to a great heuristic guideline or a framework is that as a researcher or a designer, you should be able to pick this up and take a look at your product and decide, this is, this is where there's a gap in my product. I might not need to go and actually talk to users because I know that based off of these guidelines, we could better assess, and we could better support children in something like autonomy or competence or emotional regulation, which are all items called out in the RITEC framework. The final step of this is sort of creating synergy between user experience, child development, and product design fields. So I sit at a really unique space where the background I have is in human-computer interaction, but working on kids' products. And in the human-computer interaction space, we talk a lot about frameworks and guidelines, like I mentioned, for general audience products and web design and app interactions. And this will really help us bridge that gap between both spaces of kids tech products as well as those who work in the research space, really up-leveling all of us who are involved from either a design, research, or product role. One of the highlights I'm going to call out before my time is up is really the on-site was wonderful, being able to go to Sesame headquarters, as well as all the industry speakers that we were exposed to. I found it extremely valuable to be able to learn from all of my peers, as well as all of the amazing guest speakers that helped just level up our knowledge of all the work that's happening in this space and a part of this community. So that wraps up my time. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Phoebe from PBS SoCal.
Hi, my name is Phoebe Jung, and I am with PBS SoCal on the early learning team. I'm also mama to Arthur and Gus, and I'm here to chat about my fellowship project, which centered on our new family math app. It's an app geared towards young children. Our target demo is going to be about 3 to 5 years old, and they're grown-up guides. We're building on a very successful family engagement model which was previously focused on delivering parent and caregiver-oriented programming and resources. And with the app, we're moving more towards kid-centric content. The conversations we've been able to have because of this fellowship have been instrumental in thinking how to better design for well-being from the very beginning. The app will introduce foundational math skills, nurture math positivity, and offer tons of opportunities for intergenerational co-play. So we're actually very early on in the app design process. So the RITEC framework was a really wonderful starting point for us to think about building well-being in from the beginning. I've been part of designing and launching several kids projects, and to have these conversations at the outset has been a game-changing mindset. In conversations with the PBS SoCal team, we've decided to focus on 3 of the 8 RITEC dimensions, that being competence, creativity, and autonomy. I also want to highlight the fact that the platform and all of the content that will populate it will be delivered in both English and Spanish, because we're committed to uplifting the lived experiences of those in our community where language and culture plays a really important part. One feature we're especially excited about is called screen time or mindfulness breaks. We're still iterating on a title for that. What this will look like is families will decide how long a play session should be, and at break time, kids are presented with a couple of options for offline play. So providing opportunities for them to launch into the real world. These will be art, movement-based breaks, as well as what we're calling math missions, where they're encouraged to find math in their everyday environments. Think math scavenger hunts. At first, this was a hunch, and we weren't quite sure how it would be received, but the conversations that we had with the youth design team highlighted how valuable this feature would have been for their younger selves. So in talking to the near peers of our target demo, they were really helpful in affirming what we were thinking as a team and helped us feel more confident in moving forward with this design. As a public media station, we're actually really fortunate to be able to explore these alternative metrics or KPIs that aren't business as usual. Usually a lot of organizations are really thinking about how to keep eyeballs on screen, and we're thinking about ways to take them off and explore their surroundings. And it was one of our speakers, I want to shout out Emily, that really pushed us to think through these metrics and approach it differently. Another fellowship highlight for me was being able to connect with others, fellows and youth design team members, and really see how we're building an ecosystem of well-being for the media and tech space. And the camaraderie is so invigorating. I want to thank the Joan Gans Cooney team, my fellow fellows, and everyone here today. And I am standing between you and, I believe, a break. And so I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. Speaking of screen time and mindfulness breaks, we invite you to take a very quick stretch break, and feel free to share any media, a show, an album, a book, anything that's giving you joy in the chat. And in a moment, Madeline will be our next fellow to share. All right, Madeline, take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks. I am Madeline Larson, and I lead the Natural History Museum of Utah's work to leverage our digitized collections and research for learning in K-12 classrooms. So we do this through a program called Research Quest, which are online investigations that are aligned with classroom learning standards and grounded in the work of our own research scientists. And I'm really glad to be here with you today to share how the Wellbeing by Design Fellowship and RITEC framework have shaped the development of our newest Research Quest investigation, fungus farming ants. This investigation is the first in our series designed specifically for elementary age learners, and it dives into a surprisingly fun area of research, ants that farm their own food. And as a side note, they've been doing this for more than 60 million years, which I think is just remarkable. So over the last 10 years, our Research Quest program has focused on middle school students with the goal of helping them build critical thinking skills by engaging in the same kind of work our scientists do, analyzing data, evaluating evidence, and developing explanations based on what they find. As we began designing for younger learners, the framework gave us a more holistic lens to evaluate our design plans, and our youth design team quickly showed us that we'd need to shift our approach. For younger learners, a purely science-forward experience wouldn't be enough. They'd need a fun factor, something playful and imaginative to draw them in. So the team told us that learners wanted to feel respected. That meant not talking down to them or oversimplifying the content, but instead providing the right kinds of supports like videos, visual cues, and scaffolding so they could dig into the material with a high level of confidence. Creativity was also high on their list. We built that in by letting students choose how to share their learning, like creating a comic instead of writing a report to communicate what they learned. They wanted other choices too, so we gave them the option to take on the role of either being the scientist or being the ant to do their investigation, basically to choose the learning pathway that most aligned with their interests. And finally, they emphasized that the experience should feel real. So we've grounded the content in actual scientific research and included opportunities to hear directly from the scientists who study these ants. To wrap up, this fellowship and the RITEC framework have really helped me zoom out and think more holistically about what we're designing, not just how to make science clear and accessible, but how to support the entire experience. It's pushed me to consider the emotional, social, and cognitive needs of our learners so that when we're creating something that nurtures their creating something that nurtures their growth as a whole person, not just as students of science. And all of these lessons will find a lot of utility as we move on to develop more investigations for elementary age learners. I'll end by saying thanks for the time, the space, and resources, the relationships that the fellowship provided. Being able to learn with each of you and the John Gans Cooney Center team has truly been invaluable to our design team. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll hand it over to Stephanie from Pinterest.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Ojo, staff product designer at Pinterest on the trust and safety team. So there I work on a variety of trust and safety related things from product safety, compliance, identity, but part of the product safety work that I lead is our teen experience and teen safety. And so that is obviously why I am here. But part of, Pinterest mission is to bring everyone the inspiration to create a life that they really love. And when we say everyone, we truly mean everyone. People come to Pinterest not just to dream and gather inspiration, but hopefully to actually take action on the inspiration that they're collecting. And it's possible that you've heard Pinterest leadership speaking recently about how we're committed to being, a positive corner of the internet, which makes me really proud to work at a company that's dedicated to standing apart by prioritizing user well-being and positivity. And so with that in mind, I was so excited to be a part of this fellowship, to learn from other designers and experts working on designing positive online experiences for today's youth. Part of Pinterest's focus for being a positive corner of the internet stems from our commitment to, youth well-being and youth safety. So through the fellowship, I worked on components of our product vision for teens on Pinterest. I'm sure I don't have to remind this group at all that teens feel a lot of pressure on social, just in general, and social media at large doesn't really help. There's countless articles on the effects of social media has on our youth, and I believe that Pinterest can really be a safer and more private space for young people to grow and explore interests. So that's why it was really fun to dig in with other people focused on this type of work, and then also with the youth design team here to really understand teens' needs and experiences. At Pinterest, Gen Z is our fastest growing user group right now, which might be surprising to people, but it's really exciting time and really important for us to understand how teens use the platform. So with this fellowship and the co-design opportunities, it was a really great step for our teen vision as it was coming to life to build a deeper understanding of these teen needs. And in the end, a really more thoughtful and robust teen vision for our platform. So a few key takeaways from working with the ever so brilliant youth design team. I was blown away at just like how thoughtful and amazing the group was. But that teens really need a safe space to rest, not just like home and bed, yes, but places like the bus can provide this respite and opportunity to pause amidst the chaos and responsibilities that a lot of them are feeling right now. Also, they're in this process of forming their identity. There's this real value in building collections of things, whether it's figurines that they find as valuable collectibles, and they're starting to build their collection, and that's giving them this piece of their identity that's forming, or maybe collecting earrings and items to make their own crafts. Teens really have these amazing life experiences, and I think it's easy as adults to think oh, they're not as old as us, they haven't lived full lives, but they have a lot of years that they have these really rich and important life experiences. And I think as adults and designers in this space, we really need to actively listen to these young people, especially when we're designing products for them. So as I'm sure you can tell from my enthusiasm talking about it, the time that we got to actually co-design an interface with the youth design team was one of the largest highlights of the fellowship for me. In addition to the guest speakers that came in and again that just talked about their experiences working with young people and facilitating co-design and ways to connect with them. Coming into this, I had run various co-design sessions with youth before, but it was amazing to learn other people's experiences, even things as little as like everybody sitting on the ground together during a session so they feel that you're on the same level with them. Or when you ask teens or young people to introduce themselves in a research session you're doing with them, share your name and your age too. I think in our co-design session, me and my colleague, we shared pictures of ourselves at 13 and 14 to kind of like help make it more relatable and really connect with them. And so those were things like real takeaways that I learned from our guest speakers and working amidst the other fellows and the youth design team. And then lastly, one final thing that is like related, people have talked about the trip to the Sesame office, but there was one man we got to meet, Lewis, and I was so incredibly inspired by his passion that he shared. And so Lewis is an early illustrator that worked on Sesame Street. And, we stopped by his desk and we just asked him to, talk about his work. And he lit up when asked about this, got up from his desk, walked up and down the hallways, showing us, letters from Michelle Obama and sketches he'd done and pictures of like, organizing the Google letters when they did the Google Doodle with the Sesame characters and all these amazing experiences. And he was so passionate after over 30 years and how he's adapted over time, from drawing by hand to working on the computer. And so there was this real amazing, just palpable inspiration from talking to him and meeting him. And I think there's a joy that comes from designing things that you love and also solving problems that you are really, really passionate about. And it was really energizing to be a part of a fellowship around other people, bringing people together with a shared passion of designing products that at their core are focusing on like making the world a better place for young people. So thank you all for being here to hear about our experiences, and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this fellowship. It was absolutely amazing. So that being said, I'm so excited to hand things over to Sunny to share about his experience.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. My name is Sunny Williams. I'm a guy that works at Tiny Docs. Tiny Docs is an interactive web app designed to educate elementary school age kids about health in a fun and easy to understand language. We're on a mission to improve kids' health and make 1 billion people smile. So in this Tiny Docs universe where we create these animated shorts that educate kids about anything from mental health to general health and wellness to surgical procedures to chronic diseases, we wanted to create a game. And the game that we created is called TD Shuffle. And TD Shuffle was inspired in part by Dr. Mario. So it's a digital puzzle game, Tetris-like game, designed really to allay children's anxiety because there's research out there that shows that these Tetris-like games have the ability to reduce kids' anxiety scores. So that's what we created volume 1, let's call it V1 of TD Shuffle. And we were excited to test it with the youth design team. And when we introduced it to them, they got to play for a couple minutes and then we got feedback. And one of the first bits of feedback that we got was, have you considered making the game more interesting? Which was a tough piece of feedback to get, to receive, but instantly we knew that we were in the right room because at the end of the day, we want to create magical experiences for children. You don't create magical experiences by just everyone saying that what you're doing is great. So this group of very insightful and thoughtful kids made us really examine and think about what's the storytelling like from the sound side? Is there an opportunity to enhance the UI? They also wanted to, very creative bunch where they want to create their own world. So adding a feature or the ability for kids to create their own board is even something that we are adding to the next version of TD Shuffle. And lastly, we understood that the game was perhaps, or through the group, we understood that the game was maybe a little too simplistic. So adding levels and making the game more difficult as kids advance through the game is something that we're also really interested in adding to the next layers of TD Shuffle. So one of the big takeaways from this experience was using the RITEC language, which our design team is not only looking through, using this lens to look at how do we enhance TD Shuffle, but also how do we enhance the entire interactive web app for Tiny Docs. The two big highlights for us, for me personally, it was such a joy and to be able to go to the Cooney Center, to go to Sesame Street, meet the fellows, and really just see what joy looks like in a workplace. And it really just, you walk in and it's really in every inch of that building. And it was really inspiring and beautiful to just spend the day there. And then the other huge highlight for us was meeting all the fellows, such inspiring, compassionate, responsible, and thoughtful people, just the right people who you want designing these digital toys and digital resources for kids. If there are more folks like my fellow fellows designing kids products, the kids are going to be okay. So with that, I want to thank everyone at the Cooney Center. I want to thank my fellow fellows for allowing me to take part in this. There was a moment where I looked around, looked to my left, looked to my right, and wondered how the heck did I get invited to this party? But I thank you, because some of your wisdom did rub off on me. So I thank you for allowing me to be in the room where all this beautiful magic happens. And so with that, I'm going to pass the baton off to Mariana and Brittany.
Thank you, Sunny. That was so nice. So hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Dr. Mariana Diaz-Vionchek.
And I'm Brittany Summer-Katzen, and we're excited to share our work on the Marshmallow Project and what we've learned and brought back to our team through the Digital Wellbeing Fellowship.
So as we know, children today are spending more time on screen than ever, over 3.5 hours a day for kids 5 to 8 years old. And at the same time, parents are increasingly worried about how that screen time is affecting their child's development. On top of that, global assessments show that children are falling behind in core skills like reading and math. Families are eager for meaningful and screen-free learning opportunities outside of school. The Marshmallow Project recognizes this as a white space for innovation in learning.
So what if we could create a screenless physical toy that uses AI to foster imagination, creativity, and real learning for kids ages 4 to 7? As education and media consultants, Mariana and I are working with the Marshmallow Project team to build a screenless, voice-powered physical toy that invites children to actively engage in interactive experiences. It responds to each child's voice and ideas, adapting in real time to their abilities and interests. The goal is to create an experience that's joyful, personalized, and growth-oriented. The toy is currently in development, and we cannot wait until we can share more specific details with this audience.
The fellowship experience has shown us how to center both strategy and design around children's well-being and what that really means, actually. So we were deeply influenced by the RITEC framework, especially the idea that safety is not only the absence of harm, but it's actually also the creation of an additional positive value. That challenged us to go beyond harm reduction and think about how our product could truly help children flourish. We now have a mindset of intentionally designing for autonomy, emotional growth, and joyful exploration, not just avoiding risk, but really maximizing opportunity.
I know it's been said many times over already in this session, but one of our most rewarding experiences during this fellowship also was working with the youth design team. They were really the first kids ever to see our product designs, and their insights informed key decisions, including how the toy is going to be charged and which design we ultimately will put into the market. They had a unanimous answer, so it made it very, very simple for us. It was a powerful reminder that kids aren't just users. They're experts in their own experience. And as people have said throughout, it's really important to listen to them. Their feedback is ultimately helping us to make something that's truly engaging, relevant, and most importantly, responsive to their needs.
And the fellowship has not only shaped our product, it has also shaped our partnership. Brittany and I have known each other for almost 20 years, and our work together started on one of the first interactive television experiences for children, Dora the Explorer. And today we bring aspects of that experience as well as insights from our careers to date to help create a new type of groundbreaking and lean forward interactive experience for young children.
The fellowship has not only influenced our work, but has also given us the chance to grow our working relationship, build our knowledge base, and expand our network together. We were surrounded by a supportive, generous, and brilliant cohort, as everyone who's on this webinar can see. And they challenged us, they lifted us up, and they really inspired us to think more boldly. We also learned from the incredible speakers who introduced new perspectives on measurement, on co-design, and on inclusive innovation, ideas that will continue to really guide our work. As we continue to develop the toy, we're prioritizing ethical AI, diverse representation, and child safety, most importantly. We intend to train the AI model to better understand the nuances of children's voices, and we'll work with writers from varied backgrounds to ensure that stories reflect a range of lived experiences. We're also embedding security and privacy measures that keep families safe and in control.
Ultimately, our goal is to deliver more than a toy. We want to be part of empowering kids to express themselves, build resilience, and explore the world with curiosity and confidence. With each play session, they're not just having fun, they're really growing. So thanks to the support and inspiration from this fellowship, and thanks to that, we're one step closer to creating a product that reflects the richness of childhood and a new vision for children's technology. And that's all the time we have today. So on to Mariette from Bilingual Generation. Bienvenida, Mariette.
Gosh, am I live? I can't tell. Gracias, Mariana and Brittany. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Rivera Nieves with Bilingual Generation, and I'm on the product development team for Billy, which is a joyful, abuelita, and science-approved bilingual app designed to nurture children's biliteracy, their culture, and their identity through things like stories, literacy and numeracy games, and cultural and intergenerational connections. And we created Billy for emergent bilingual kids, ages 3 to 8. So these are kids who are growing up with 2 or more languages at home, especially because learning English is often prioritized in US schools over home languages like Spanish or Aymara. And we aspire for Billy to be a safe, calming, and joyful space where kids can build their bilingual skills while also building pride in who they are, how they speak, and where they and their families come from. And that's why we joined this fellowship, to learn how to make well-being a core part of Billy's design and to get support in sort of assessing how we're doing so far. And it came at a perfect moment. It opened up a whole world of research, frameworks, and people thinking really deeply about well-being in digital media to a degree that I'd never anticipated. And all of that has helped sharpen our direction as a product team in a lot of powerful ways. I'll highlight 3. First, the fellowship has helped me see well-being not just as a nice to have, but as a design mandate. And tools like RITEC and the Digital Thriving Playbook and the Playful by Design framework have really helped me name the things that we were already trying to do and giving me that language and strategies to help do them better. So I now feel much better equipped to embed well-being goals like competence and emotional regulation and creativity into how we build and into how we measure what matters. Secondly, I'm walking away with a deeper commitment to co-design. We've always worked with families and teachers, but now we're thinking about how to make this a consistent practice. Lots of great ideas from current and past fellows about like youth and caregiver advisory boards and how to create regular design feedback loops that center user voice, especially children's. So grateful to the youth design team who helped us improve our onboarding process, our game onboarding, by reminding us that color and movement and choice really matter in every single moment. And it's also really exciting throughout the fellowship to just know that organizations like In Tandem exist to facilitate these kinds of collaborations between youth and adults. That's really exciting. And lastly, I'm also rethinking our approach to our metrics, especially with very young users. traditional surveys don't cut it in terms of getting their feedback on how they're feeling and how their skills are growing. We're now exploring more developmentally appropriate ways to track growth in areas like social emotional learning and belonging, things that really matter but are really tricky to measure. And I understand too that we have to work not just from what we think is important, but co-define that with children, families, and educators. And Billy is still really early in its journey. We're piloting in classrooms, we're creating and refining our content, and we're trying to build with care as we prepare for a public launch this year. So I'm really grateful to this fellowship and the support of the Joan Ganz Cooney Center. Because of that, we're doing that work with a much stronger foundation. So if you're interested in partnering or piloting or just following along, you can visit us at billyapp.com or follow us on Instagram at We Are Bilingual Generation. Lastly, on a personal level, I just wanted to say that this is one of the most generous and thoughtful and fun learning communities that I've been a part of. I learned so much from all of you, from playing and dancing at Sesame Workshop to some of you very generously lending your time and expertise to doing some usability tests with me, like in the hallway or on Zoom. So I'm really, really grateful for all of your wisdom and encouragement, the co-fellows and the team at Sesame, and for championing our work at Billy. And like Sunny said, really thank you for letting me be in the room and also assuring me that I belong there. And yeah, that's it. Last but not least, I want to pass it to Danny.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mariette. Hi, I'm Danny Pimentel. I'm an assistant professor of immersive media psychology at the University of Oregon, and I co-direct the Oregon Reality Lab. So in collaboration with my colleagues at the U of O and Old Harrow Studios, I developed VESSEL, which stands for Virtual Excursions for Science Learning. A VESSEL is this multiplayer VR game where players embody a marine biologist and embark on a collaborative marine science research mission. It's based on a real-world 2-week scientific expedition where players will study marine food webs in the Pacific. So the idea is players put on the headset and they get to embody different roles aboard the virtual ship and work together with other players around the world or in their classrooms to use scientific instruments, collect plankton, and analyze samples. VESSEL is designed really to facilitate experiential science learning and give hands-on understanding of not only the science, but STEM career pathways, right? The goal is ultimately to build students' STEM identities and their sense of belonging in science. So as part of this fellowship, it was such an incredible opportunity to take a hard look at not only my game, but to examine broad approaches to designing for well-being. So one big takeaway from this fellowship was really a philosophical one, right? Which is that well-being is not only an outcome that we want to measure as researchers and designers, but it's something we revisit intentionally during every iteration of our design. So all the frameworks that people have spoken about, like the RITEC framework, really allowed us to examine various dimensions of well-being, each very important and each directly or indirectly tied to every design decision we've made at VESSEL, especially those related to identity. So I would say one big benefit of the fellowship related to just giving me space to explore how much agency we were giving players over their journey. The fellowship gave me space to really ask questions like, how do we balance agency with guidance, right? We want players to feel autonomous and for them to have opportunity to fail, learn, and achieve mastery, but we also don't want to discourage them through difficulty. So the fellowship gave me time to revisit our approach to guardrails in the game. So myself and some collaborators from Northeastern University were able to examine VESSEL's impact on learning and STEM identity by comparing a guided version of the expedition with one run entirely by the students on their own. And findings showed that there were similar knowledge and STEM identity gains across both groups, which was really encouraging and promising. But beyond just the identity and learning piece, the fellowship helped me further understand how human nature connection, especially at such a young age, can tie directly to their well-being. So from a design perspective, we're exploring, well, what are some different kinds of interactions that players can have with the ocean that are not just utilitarian or not just based on science, but can be fun and playful and hopefully build connection in nature as well. So in terms of like how these things dovetailed into direct and immediate impacts to VESSEL, the game, it manifested in 4 ways. The first one is we realized that VR, which is still growing in popularity, is not accessible generally, right? And we need to meet students where they are. So we definitely are prioritizing cross-platform play. You know, we want students to be able to put on a VR headset and play with those that maybe don't have access to a VR headset, that are on their phone or on their computer. So really excited to announce that because of this fellowship, in many respects, we're currently working with HTC Viverse to adapt Vessel to their platform, which supports multiple modalities. So we're excited about that. Second thing is that the youth design team feedback really emphasized the importance of customization, right? So when players enter the world, they don't want to just pick a role. They don't want to put on a hard hat and decide that they're the captain or the Marine tech. They want to craft their identity. They really want to invest in the representation. So enabling greater freedom over their appearance is something that we're prioritizing in this new version of Vessel. Another great idea from the youth design team related to customization was to have like a journal mechanic, right? Where players can reflect on key moments, right? But not just moments that myself as a designer deems important, right? Like when you find a new species of plankton, we want to give that agency over the player. Let them be the judge of what's special about the trip and let them record it. And then logistically, we're also taking feedback to improve the onboarding process, right? Which can be very overwhelming. When I went on the research cruise, it was very overwhelming. And it's currently very text heavy. So we're in the process of changing that. Overall, the fellowship really gave me the tools that I think myself and my team could benefit from. Structured way to redesign Vessel, and reminded me that technology, some people have said this, right? Especially VR, can be very problematic, very scary. And these experiences, like this fellowship, remind me that there's magic in what we do, that we can do so much good in the world with the stories that we tell across the media platforms that we use. So I'm just really motivated to keep the work going. And if you're willing to help with Vessel, either in a research capacity or development capacity, let me know. We're always open to collaboration. So echoing everyone that came before me, thank you to the CUNY Center and all the staff that made this fellowship possible. Thank you to my fellow fellows for being amazing sources of inspiration. And thank you to the youth design team for giving me such candid feedback to help the design. So thank you, and back to Wellbeing by Design staff.
Hi, everyone. It is I'm Sarah Jacobson. I'm a project manager for Wellbeing by Design at the CUNY Center, and just a huge thank you to all of the 2025 Wellbeing by Design Fellows for bringing your all to this program, for your passion, for your interest, for your commitment, to your hard work, and your dedication to designing digital products that are good for kids. If we were all here in person, I would ask everyone on our call today to give a huge round of applause to these amazing fellows. But in this digital format, I'll ask everyone to put all the love they can into the chat. Everyone's presentations represented tons of extra hard work on top of their already busy day jobs and hustles. So just amazing work, everyone. We were inspired by you every day, and I feel personally very lucky to have been a part of this experience with you all. So love seeing all the love coming in. So the fellows' hard work isn't quite done yet. They are all working on finalizing a case study that expands on the learnings that they've shared with you all today. We will be publishing these case studies in July, so stay tuned for that. And if you aren't already, sign up for our newsletter so you'll be the first to know when they are out. So we are going to move on to, we have time for a few questions here in a minute. So if you have any burning questions, I have noted a few in the chat, but if you have any additional questions for any of the fellows or more broadly, go ahead and pop those in the Q&A and we'll get to those. But first, I also want to shout out, we have almost all of our 2024 cohort of fellows on the line with us today. We could feel your support, and we're so excited about all the work that you've been doing over the past year. If you could all drop a note in the chat and say hello, all the fellows from last year, and then if you like, put a link to your current work, or your current work that you're doing, or the case study that you prepared for last year's fellowship, please pop that in the chat as well. So thanks so much to our former cohort at 2024, the guinea pigs, as a few of you have called yourselves, for being here as well. All right, so looking at our Q&A here, there's not a lot of super specific questions. Any other questions? We'll give it another minute. But there was some back and forth in the chat about identity development. And since Ruben's not here in person to comment on that, Danny, I know that you did a lot of work and spoke a little bit about identity development through your project. I don't know, do you want to come online and come back online and say a few more words about how you're thinking about identity development, and if the person who put in the chat that they were curious about that, do you have any more specific questions about that?
I'm kind of unsure about the question, but happy to talk just very briefly about how
Yeah,
we're
sure.
thinking about identity on Vessel. You know, we essentially we look at identity from the perspective of, you have this kind of wishful identity of like aspirational students want to become scientists in some capacities, but also like similarity identification, which is this idea that this target looks like me and it relates to my cultural background. And so we're kind of balancing both of those things with how do we bake in the opportunity to aspire to be something different than oneself, but also still anchor and relate a target back to who they actually see themselves as. And I think you do that through either doing the actual science, right? Kind of just embodying a scientist and as you see it, and then doing the actual science. But also engaging with scientists, like Noel's project as well has a bit of that, this opportunity to engage with scientists that might, be identifiable. So we also want to do some of that as well in ours, where we can invite scientists to put on a headset and lead an expedition with a bunch of students and have that one-on-one. So we're very optimistic about how some of these platforms can enable both of those pathways to building science identity, I think. Hopefully I answered your question.
That's great. Thank you so much, Danny. All right, we have a question here on autonomy. It says autonomy was a big keyword for so many presentations today. Was this something that you all saw and anticipated before the youth design team interactions, or was this a surprise as you move forward with your designs, and how did it impact your thinking for the project? Ooh, what a great question. Autonomy. Okay. Let's see. I know that Madeline, do you mind? I know that you thought a lot about autonomy and giving kids power in your work. Do you want to come on and say a couple words about that?
Yeah, sure. I'm glad to. So one of the things that we've long tried to do with our investigations is give kiddos the chance to direct their own learning by providing enough just-in-time supports that they can be successful without mediation from adults. So that's one of the first things, is trying to figure out how to support them in guiding their own learning. But another way we think about autonomy is giving them choice in how they do their work. And so not having this sort of very linear prescriptive, you have to do step A, B, and C to get to D, but instead giving them the environment in which they can explore a question fully and arrive at a way of responding to their research questions, both in format and in content, in ways that really reflect their understanding about the subject matter. And so, for example, they're gathering loads of information and evidence about their research question, and they're asked to provide an evidence-based response to that question. And that is never positioned as a right answer, just one that is supported by the evidence or not. And so we really think about autonomy in that way, giving learners the chance to explore a space fully and communicate what they've taken away from it within that critical thinking framework, rather than you got it right or wrong framework.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Madeline. All right, we have a great question. We have so many questions coming in now in the Q&A. Thank you so much. All right, I've got one here. It says, thanks to all the fellows. I second that. I'm curious how colleagues at your home or day job organizations have responded to the findings and insights you've developed through your fellowship. Do they seek to build on your work? Do they see it as something limited to your project? Do they feed into wider work? Kirsten, I know that you have done some work on bringing this to your wider team. Is that something you want to comment on for a minute?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So bringing in the RITEC framework has positively created a sense of common language that we can start to talk about. And so it's really early on, kind of introducing and integrating. And I will say that there is also a balance working with various products, designers, and product teams. It's finding the right moments to introduce either the entire framework or parts of that framework, and also deciding what pieces of the framework should we introduce and at what times. I would love if there was this one size fits all approach, but it's sort of just taking the pieces as they come. However, I will say that working with a lot of designers and product developers who just care really deeply about the needs of children and designing in their best interest, it's really awesome to see the level of importance we all put on making sure that we're looking at kids' products in a unique way and not just adapting general audience best practices to kids' products. I think I read something recently that had said, kids aren't just small adults. So they're their own unique beings, and being able to bring in these frameworks and implement them in various parts of the practices, whether it's before designing, during designing, or after designing, I think is really key. And figuring out what works best for your organization and how to implement it is just going to help bring more success.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kirsten. All right, we have a question here. How do you see gameplay like this being incorporated into the day-to-day learning classroom environment? Noelle, this seems like a great question for you. Do you mind coming on and commenting on that a little bit?
Sure. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry. I was actually typing an answer to someone else's question.
Absolutely. Love the multiple question. The question is, how do you see gameplay like this being incorporated into the day-to-day learning and classroom environment?
Sure. So with our experiences, we're really designing games that push the educational goals. So we want to make sure that the thing that drives the play forward, the mechanics of the game, the setting of the game, all of that is grounded in the educational goals. So we make science educational games, and when we're working on those, we're really trying to dive into what is the central thing we're trying to teach, and then how are we going to have students feel like they are participating actively in science with our games. So having the mechanics that they do in those games really push those things. But we want students to feel, with the RITEC framework, we want students to feel autonomy, like they get to make active choices about what they're doing and get to see the results of those choices. So something that we have tried to incorporate more is can we let failure happen, right? Because in real science, you fail along the way, right? Not every experiment is a success. So can we have students gracefully fail through an experience and try again and do things like that? So I think that's something that the RITEC framework has really encouraged us to think more about. How do we have this back and forth between teaching the subject matter at hand, but also letting kids feel autonomy and feeling able to, do what they would like and feeling encouraged and accomplished.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Noelle. All right, we have another question here. What are some cool new technologies that you are all playing with to develop your games? As our AI project in the fellowship, Mariana and Brittany, would you mind taking that one?
Sure, Sarah, thanks. Really what comes to mind is just for us learning a little bit more about the AI technology at large and how that interacts with the human component of the design, which has been incredible. And specifically, I'm thinking of voice recognition. So we will focus on recognizing different speech patterns to be more inclusive to different speech patterns, including some speech disabilities. So the technology will be able to understand that and adapt to that. So that's the example that I'm thinking of. Brittany.
Yeah, I agree. And just in terms of learning more about AI and what kids know about AI, the kids that we worked with on the youth design team were obviously a little bit older. They were teenagers, but just hearing their opinions of AI and their hopes and fears and desires for safety was really important to us, and considering what should be important safety-wise from our perspective and our team's perspective. And we'll be working with the team more on that.
That's great. Thank you so much, both. All right. Let's see. We've got one question on balancing safety and measurement. Mariette, I know that you were talking about working on your measurement with Billy. Is that something that you would want to comment a little bit, like how you're thinking about designing for safety, but also understanding what's going on with kids?
Yes. Oh, hello. I can try. I think we're still in like the early stages of rethinking this, but I know that right now, the way the platform is set up, we're not really collecting that much information apart from like self-reported data that the children are giving in terms of those surveys that pop up, but we are trying to redesign those. So I think, yeah, it's still an emerging idea. I think safety and privacy is paramount to us, of course. And right now, most of our focus on safety and privacy in that regard is keeping the platform a closed platform. There's no like communications that happen within it. We're still kind of exploring the best way to maybe introduce that in the future, but it's not really in the purview right now. And then are also wanting to keep the place visually very clean and safe and welcoming, and not, or kind of like as a juxtaposition to some of the other media that children are engaging with in their day-to-day lives that's very like overstimulating. So I think most of our focus around safety and that wellness has been around creating like an aesthetically clean and yeah, making it feel like an early childhood classroom in that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Marianne. Stephanie, as our resident safety trust and safety team member on the fellowship, would you want to comment a little bit more about how you think about balancing safety and well-being and safety and trying to understand your audience?
Sure. I think for us at Pinterest specifically, and this like new formation of our trust and safety design team, and the group heard from our amazing researcher, Emily, who I believe is also on the call here today. The way we're trying to look at it is safety doesn't mean just designing out the bad and, giving people tools to block and report and, have agency when they do see something bad. But it's also about really amplifying the good on the platform. And so I think that's a lens through which we're looking at it, is it's not just designing out the bad. And I think it's easy to think, oh, safety, we have to keep people safe, particularly we have to keep young people safe. And like, absolutely. But part of having a really healthy and safe experience is also amplifying the really good things for the users of your platform. Additionally, I think that part of it when dealing with young people also leans into agency and autonomy a little bit. And like, they're not going to maybe want to be on your platform if it feels like they can't grow and learn and it's, too kiddie for them or too young. Like meeting teens where they are, young people where they are developmentally, and giving them opportunities to learn and have experiences, safe experiences, right? But like learn and grow and not just feel like everything is restricted from them, is also something that we keep in mind. So it's this balance of like, how do we balance safe and social and age appropriate and agency? And it's a really interesting like recipe to try to get right. But I think the biggest takeaway for us has been not just restricting the bad. That's important. We feel like we're decently pretty good at that right now, but like, how do we really amplify the good then in our product too?
not an easy balance to walk for sure, but a very, very important one. All right, I think the questions are starting to slow down here, and I think we've gotten a lot of questions answered in the chats as well. Any last questions before we wrap up? Well, on that note, I think we'll go ahead and close out today's webinar. We heartfelt thank you for joining us, for your support of the Joan Ganz Cooney Center, and for all of your interest in designing for children's well-being. I hope you have a great rest of your day or your evening, wherever you might be calling in from, and thank you again.